John chapter 6 verse 42, Jesus talking to people around him, and they ask a question. How can he say, I came down from heaven? How can he say that? They have a question. I mean, everybody has questions, don't they? What's the weather going to be like today? Very British question. What's for tea? That's quite a British question as well, isn't it? What will GB do at the Olympics next? That's quite a British question as well. But there are deeper questions that cover everyone, aren't they? Deep stuff about life and the universe and everything. You know, how am I going to just get through today? What's the point of all this stuff that we're going through? I don't know. What are the big questions that you've maybe sitting on that are rumbling, maybe somehow underneath? What are those? What are your big questions? You see, in John chapter 6, Jesus is talking to people who've known him since he was a kid. They say before it, kind of, we know his mum, Mary, and we know his dad, Joseph. So how can you say you've come down from heaven? I think that's quite a good question, isn't it? There's a kind of like, well, we've known you since you were a kid, and now you say you come down from heaven. What's this about? But there's something different going on here. The Greek uses this particular word to describe how they did it. The word is gogudzo. Gogudzo. Get your glottal stops or whatever it is around that there. Gogudzo. And it means they grumbled, they murmured, they did. It's a negative. It's a sort of not talking to someone direct. It's the sort of behind the panels of so and so, like a shaking the head and all that kind of stuff. It's quite a negative thing. They didn't get their questions out and go direct. They gogudzoed. What about you? What are those big questions that maybe you're sitting on? That maybe they're difficult to wrestle with, to answer. So there's a sense of the Bible saying, gogudzo, no, not a good approach. We've got to go up to Jesus and get that out. But that's kind of hard, isn't it? The reality is the big questions are the ones that actually are really quite often personal, about deeper stuff in our lives, our security and stuff. We don't want to risk asking them because we might look foolish. You know, shouldn't everybody know the answer to that? We might look vulnerable because it exposes our weaknesses, our fears, our concerns. What will other people think? Turn the page. So we've got a bit of a problem here. Gogudzo, no. You're on with that with me. You know, we're not to do it that way. But how can we do it so that people feel able to ask those big questions, to really take that risk? If only there was somewhere where people could feel completely safe. They could ask those questions and raise their concerns in an environment where they felt able to do it. They wouldn't be judged. They wouldn't be looked down on. They could ask them and they would know they wouldn't be thought of as foolish. And they could get out those deep questions. If only there was a place. Well, funny you should say that, because I know of somewhere that might just be the ideal place. It's called a course, the Alpha Course, but actually it's far more than a course. It's almost like a family of people that you're with, who you feel safe and able to ask the big questions, to take a risk of saying, well, I don't know I don't know, I believe this, or you know, he says this, but what about that? And to ask those kind of questions, the kind of like we just talked about. How on earth could he say he came down from heaven? What's that about? So what actually is this Alpha Course? I asked Nicky Gumbel, well, I nicked it from his website actually, but here is he introducing the Alpha
The
course?
first course I ran, it was still a course basically for people who are already Christian, maybe an emphasis on people who are new to faith. And it was rare that people outside the church came on it. But then I think it was the second course I ran. The whole of my small group were people from outside the church, and all of them came to faith, had an encounter with Jesus, and were filled with the Holy Spirit on the weekend. It was an extraordinary, I was observing something, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. Maybe we could adjust this course and make it a course for people outside of the church. And so that's what we changed the order of the talks. We changed what we did in the small groups. Instead of doing Bible study, which is what we used to do when it was a course for people already Christians, we had discussion. Because people said on their questionnaires, we only really enjoyed the evening when we were allowed to discuss the talk. So we changed it to discussion groups. We developed the whole thing around the outsider, the person who was not a Christian or not a churchgoer or very new, and designed the course around that. And then it started to grow, and then we found hundreds of people coming here, and then other churches got interested, so we ran conferences to explain how to do it, and then it spread around the world, and now millions of people have done it.
So thanks, Nicky Gumbel, the person who's Mr. Alpha all across the UK and the world. So we've got Gogudzo, no, you've got that with me. Gogudzo, no, X. So I want to say maybe Alpha, yes. Gogudzo, no. Alpha, yes. But what is this? Just a little bit more. What does it involve? Who's it for? And stuff like that. So very briefly, pre-pandemic, it was something that you did in person. People would be invited to go to an Alpha supper or a kind of intro night where there'd be a lovely meal. You would sit, eat together, get to know each other a bit. There'd be some info about the Alpha, maybe people who've done it before, saying how it was helpful for them or what was good and bad, etc. So people can be well informed, and then people are invited if they want to join it. And then for probably weekly for 8-10 weeks possibly, people meet up together, eat together, watch a short video clip, which will be Nicky or someone else explaining some bits of the Christian faith, and then the best bit often people talk about is the discussion group, going into a small group, safe, ask any question you like, there's no bad questions, where you can express your thoughts, opinions, doubts, concerns about some of this God and Christianity stuff, and that's the key to Alpha in a nutshell. Obviously, during a pandemic and lockdown, that was impossible, and Alpha experimented with trying to do this online. That they were concerned that, what about the meal and the friendship? Well, people actually even come along, and amazingly, they and a number of churches have tried it and have been really impressed how people have decided to come along from the safety, if you like, of their sitting room, where if things are too difficult you can just close the laptop or whatever, but have really found it a very powerful and helpful experience. Primarily it's for people who are not yet followers of Jesus, but it's also a great thing for people who are new to faith or just think, I just really need to kind of renew some of this stuff. So that's a key thing. Alpha, I think, is a great way to ask those big questions, not in that Gogudzo way, which is actually not really facing up to them, is getting them out and talking them through in an honest and open way together. So many people say how wonderful experience it's been, and want to keep doing stuff afterwards. So Gogudzo, no. Alpha, yes. And even if it's not something you think, personally, that's not right for me at the moment, is there someone maybe who you could invite to say, come along with me to the taster evening or the first thing, just come along and let's check it out together. Alpha, I highly recommend it. So what about Alpha in Earls Barton this autumn? Well, Jenny's asked me to try and get together a little team to see if we could get one up and running. So first we're going to try and gather a team together, people who can help organise and make it happen. We're going to pray together. That's really important, because this really makes a difference. When you can do all the right things, but if God's not in it through the prayer, then it just won't happen. So praying, that's great for everybody. And then what we'll try and do is get some kind of taster event off the ground, maybe September or October, where it's a place where people can come, or you could say to your friend, come along, check it out, I'm going along, it's going to be good, come with me. And we'll do, if possible, one in person, in a venue that would be comfortable for people who are not churchgoers to come into. So it could be a pub, or I don't know where yet, we haven't sorted it. And then after that, we will try and get it actually running when people have come along and said, yeah, maybe I want to have a go at this. Obviously, we'll also be looking at an online version as well, and whether that's possible at the same time or what, I just don't know yet. But if you're interested in being part of a team to help make Alpha happen, brilliant, fantastic. If you want to pray a bit for Alpha, fantastic as well. But one thing that I know everybody could do is just pause and think, is there somebody I know who I could just say, do you want to come with me along to that first taster night, just to check it out? Maybe it's a family member, a friend, a neighbour. It's always a slight risk to ask, but if it's done well, which we're going to make every effort to do, make it as good as possible. I think it's a low risk, and actually the possibility is that they could discover something amazing by finding a place where they can ask those big questions, but ultimately they can really meet and get to know Jesus. Love to be doing it with you.